All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, when we do look at our history, I'm not the first one to say any of this stuff. We've been saying it for a long time. And not only have we been saying it, we've been taking action. The difference between now and back then is we have the illusion of inclusion. Now, a lot of people know about Red Summer of 1919, but they don't really talk about the long, hot summer of 1967. By the mid to late 60s, people were getting tired of this nonviolent movement. They were tired of getting their ass whooped and not seeing any benefits from it. They started to realize when they fought back, they actually started seeing results. People like Stokely Carmichael, who they accredit with being the first to popularize the term Black Power, even though he isn't the first one to say it, began to come out and make speeches about fighting back, taking what is yours. They began telling the people the only way they'll get justice is if they take justice, by any means necessary. They tried to blame most of the violence that year on Stokely Carmichael, but not on the police brutality and the racist system that they have oppressing our people. It can't be that. It has to be Stokely Carmichael making speeches about it. And when the people begin to organize and take action, that's when they got results. Now, to counter our unity and our determination, they started pushing integration. And now with the illusion of inclusion, we'll be quicker to align with other groups rather than our own. But in 1967, the people understood the only way they could stop force is with force. In New Jersey, the Newark riot started after a taxi driver, John William Smith, got beat up by the Newark police. Now, the police pulled his brother over because he drove around a cop car that was illegally double parked. And I'm pretty sure being a cab driver, he was out there trying to make some money. But these two cops, John DeSimone and Vito Pontrelli, I guess felt disrespected. And after they pulled him over, one of the cops ended up beating him up. Then they drug him back to the police precinct and charged him with assaulting an officer. And they charged him with making insulting remarks and tailgating, simply because he drove around the cop who was double parked illegally. Now, since it was a hot summer night, many black residents were already outside, and they saw the police dragging his brother back to the police station after they beat him up. And a lot of people got mad, and the word started to spread. Rumors even started spreading that the police had killed his brother. So then at about 11 o'clock that night, a peaceful protest was organized outside of the precinct. Now, some people said the police came out and confronted the crowd, and some people said the crowd started throwing bricks and bottles and rocks at the police first. But at some point, a battle broke out between the people and the police. At about midnight, 2 Molotov cocktails were thrown at the police precinct, and then the crowd started looting and destroying local white businesses that were in their neighborhoods, which they should do, but they need to replace those businesses with their own, like white people did when they destroyed black businesses and put their own in there. Now, some of the members from the organization core ended up getting the cab driver, John Smith, transferred to the hospital. And for the first day and a half, the uprising was mostly just looting and not too much violence. And the next day, even though the mayor called it isolated incidents, the governor still called in the National Guard. So then around 6 o'clock that day, a group of protesters organized on the streets, and they happened to be blocking traffic. Now, some of the civil rights leaders tried to break up the crowds, but some of the civil rights leaders were seen as sellouts, because they often took compromises that didn't benefit them or the people. So then some people started yelling Black Power, and the looting started again. Now, when they started looting, the police and the National Guard were giving orders to open fire on them. And when the National Guard got there, that's when things got real deadly. The police and National Guards used false reports of snipers on roofs just to go around indiscriminately shooting at black apartment buildings, shooting at the top of the buildings even though nobody was there. And the shooting and fires lasted all night, and a lot of people just stayed in their house. But it was mostly the police doing the shooting, and they were killing innocent people that was just outside. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, one black person was shot in the back and killed while he was running away from police, even though he was unarmed. By the morning, at least 5 people were killed and 42 people were arrested, and countless people were wounded. So the next day, over 3,000 more troops from the National Guard and 500 more state troops ended up being called in. They started to form convoys and hunt down black people throughout the city. And anybody they shot, they just labeled a looter, whether they were or not. One black woman, Rebecca Brown, was shot with a barrage of bullets, which made the black community even more angry. Another black woman, Louise Spellman, was shot in the neck and killed while she was in her own apartment cooking. And all she did was look out of her window, and the National Guard shot her. The police claimed they mistook her for a sniper they were looking for. a sniper that they never found or had evidence existed at all. Another 10-year-old boy was shot while he was sitting in a car by a stray bullet at a National Guard checkpoint. Another brother was killed just walking out of the store with a beer in his hand. One 19-year-old brother, James Rutledge, was shot 39 times by police as he was trying to surrender. And every day during the riot, the bridges leading into Newark was shut down at 6 o'clock and closed until the next morning. After 6 days of rioting, around 8,000 cops and National Guards were brought into the city, and around 1,460 people were arrested. Over 700 people, mostly black people, were reported injured, and there was at least $10 million in property damage. And by the end, 26 people, all black people, were killed, and they were all killed by the police or National Guard. For 3 days, the National Guard instigated most of the violence and shooting at people, including killing another 11-year-old black boy. One person said it became clear it was the police doing the riot and not the people. But of course, the people who did all of the killing were not punished. And the whole thing was blamed on the black community responding to police violence and racial discrimination that they have no problem admitting now, but they use the same talking points that they use today to try to say it didn't exist in the 60s. Instead of blaming themselves, they blame people like Stokely Carmichael. They blamed it on groups like the Black Muslims, as they called them. But not one time did they blame police brutality or this racist system designed to destroy us. And today, the exact same thing is happening. We just have the illusion of inclusion. And we have less unity than we did in 1967. In St. Louis, a brother, Cortez Bufford, was shot and killed by the St. Louis police. Now let's see how this brother ended up getting shot and killed by the police.
We are hearing for the first time from the family of a man shot and killed by a St. Louis police officer last night. It happened in the Carondelet neighborhood near the intersection of Bates and Virginia. The family spoke with Arjuna Barnes exclusively, and they say they have questions about how their son died.
Every morning I cook Cortez breakfast. Every morning we sit down and we eat breakfast together. I don't have that anymore.
Friday morning was the first morning Antoine Bufford couldn't have breakfast with his son.
That officer took that away from me.
Cortez Bufford was shot and killed by a St. Louis police officer Thursday night after he stopped by this BP gas station with a friend. Police say an officer stopped him to perform what they call a pedestrian check, and Bufford took off, running into a gangway. Chief John Hayden says the officer shot when Bufford pulled out a semi-automatic gun with an extended magazine and refused to put it down.
If the officer saw a weapon, the officer is not sure whether or not the suspect fired.
Bufford's family has questions about the police account.
He would never pointed a gun at an officer.
Bufford's dad says he knows why his son ran from police.
Because what happened to him before.
In 2015, Cortez Bufford won a $20,000 judgment in a lawsuit against police because an officer turned off a dash cam that recorded police kicking him and using a taser during an arrest. Last month, he was charged with marijuana possession and resisting arrest. And Thursday night, police say they found narcotics at the scene.
He probably had some drugs on him. They say he did.
But Antoine Bufford says his son didn't deserve to die. We've asked St. Louis police for a response to the Bufford family's claims. So far, we have not heard back.
So the police were responding to an unrelated call, and they saw this brother Cortez Bufford, who hadn't committed any crime or even been suspected of committing a crime, simply walking out of a store. And they decided to approach this brother in what they call a pedestrian check, which is basically stop and frisk. And people usually wait until they run for president to admit stop and frisk is wrong and racist. But the police decided to do it to this brother. And when the police approached him trying to violate his rights, this brother took off running. Now, the police said when he ran, he tried to climb a fence, but he couldn't. So they claim this brother pulled out a gun and pointed it at the police. Now, this brother never opened fire, so I don't know why somebody would pull out a gun and point it at the police and not open fire, if you're gonna go that far. But even though the police said they don't remember him firing any shots, they opened fire on him several times. Now, this brother Cortez Bufford dad said he know he wouldn't have pointed a gun at the police. And this brother wouldn't have got in trouble for the gun in the first place because the gun was legal. And then he said his son ran because it turns out in 2015, this brother won a lawsuit against the police after he was kicked, beaten, tased, and everything else by the police on video.
Next tonight to the dash cam video under the microscope now, many pointing to what you can hear from one of the officers. Here's ABC's Steve Osunsami.
Watch as a group of St. Louis police drag a young man from his car during an arrest, and then later one of them walks back to the camera and turns it off.
Everybody hold up. We're red right now, so if you guys are worried about cameras, just wait.
Red is police slang for a rolling camera, and just like that, the video ends. It's only coming to light tonight because the suspect in the car is suing police. The police were responding to reports of gunfire, and 18-year-old Cortez Bufford was refusing to get out of the car. He's kicked and shot twice with a stun gun. Bufford's lawyers are suing for an unspecified amount, alleging excessive force.
The officer turning off the camera says, number one, that she knew what they were doing instinctively was not right.
The video was recorded April 10th, months before the police shooting death of Michael Brown in Ferguson. Bufford's attorneys say authorities were worried this would add fuel to the fire in the streets and asked them to sit on the pictures. Tonight, the city says the officer who turned off the dash cam is being disciplined, but tell us this is no way excessive force, arguing that Bufford was punching and kicking the police and repeatedly reaching for his gun. Police say they found a semi-automatic, ammunition, and marijuana during the struggle. Despite that, they dropped all charges.
So back then, the police were responding to an unrelated call again and ended up beating this brother up, even though, again, he wasn't suspected of committing any crime. But they pulled him out of his car, they beat him, they tased him. And then when one of the cops realized they were on camera, they said, hold on, let me turn the camera off real quick before we go back to beating him up. And this brother ended up winning $20,000 in a lawsuit. And then the same thing they said he did this time, they said he did then. But back then they dropped the charges. Because I don't know how he was still reaching for his gun when there's about 10 cops beating him up. But they want to constantly bring up a history of small marijuana possession. And I guess drug take-back day doesn't apply for him. And even though they accused him of the same exact thing years ago, not only did they drop the charges, but this brother won a lawsuit. But this time, now that he's dead, it's completely justified. And most likely the only reason this brother ran in the first place was because the police was still harassing him after he got him put on blast. And this time, this brother didn't live to tell the story. Even though they're supposed to be investigating, they're still protecting these cops, not releasing their name, and they're going to stay on code and make sure they are protected. Meanwhile, when we're just walking from the store or just doing something minding our business, we are in danger. And somebody can approach us at any time and accuse us of being suspicious. And then if they kill us, they'll find a way to justify it. But if you say something about it, then it's a problem. And it doesn't even matter if you were actually accused of a crime or not. In Memphis, another brother, Antonio Smith Jr., ended up getting shot and killed by Memphis police. Now let's see how this brother ended up getting killed by the police.
All right, breaking news off the top from overnight. An officer-involved shooting in Frazier. This is Good Day Memphis. I'm Kelsey Cairns. The shooting happened around 11:30 last night when officers were responding to a prowler call in the 3600 block of Hallbrook. This is where we find Local 24 News reporter Jalen Sochek in Frazier this morning. So, Jalen, what have you learned so far?
Yeah, Kelsey, we know that one man is dead following an officer-involved shooting. Right now, we are along Watkins Street right behind us, and this is Corning Avenue. Police have us pushed back all the way here, about a quarter mile from that scene. But still, as hours after that call, there's still a massive scene here by police. The TBI, who is handling this investigation, has identified the man killed as 51-year-old Antonio Smith. Police Director Mike Rawlings said when officers were originally responding to that unrelated prowling call at 11:30 last night, that officers then heard a loud disturbance involving 3 people across the street, and that's when officers approached. A preliminary investigation by the TBI states Antonio Smith, who the report says was armed. He did not comply with officer commands, according to the TBI and reports from the scene when they approached. The TBI reports 2 officers fired their guns, killing Smith here on scene. As this investigation continues, the TBI has not said what Smith is accused of being armed with at the time of the shooting. No officers were also injured during that exchange.
Officer-involved shooting is always a very volatile, potentially a volatile scene, but we have tried to make sure we contain scenes and maintain the scene for TBI.
And why Director Rawlings is talking about a potentially volatile scene, you can see there they do have guardrails blocking off all of Corning Avenue, kind of barricading them from this scene. This location is about 2 miles from the deadly shooting involving U.S. Marshals earlier this summer back in June. That was the fatal shooting of Brandon Weber. Of course, that led to unrest and riots about how officers responded in that shooting back in June as well, right here in the Fraser neighborhood.
Now, again, the police on an unrelated call about a prowler. The police ended up hearing 3 people talking loud. So then the police said when they approached them, I guess for talking loud, one of them had a weapon. Now, most likely it wasn't a gun because they would have said he had a gun. But they're going out of the way not to be clear about what kind of weapon he had. That man could have had a switch or a branch in his hand, and they call it a weapon. But the police said whatever weapon he had, he didn't drop it fast enough and he wasn't complying. So 2 cops ended up shooting his brother. Now, the police didn't even say this brother was coming at him with a weapon, like they always try to say. Which means he probably wasn't even trying to come at him with a weapon. But they are unclear about whatever happened. But at the end of the day, they still got their paid vacation and the police are still going to protect them, even though they're supposed to be investigating. But they're going to go out of their way to cape for this cop, not even bringing up his name, while they're going to try to bring out whatever history this brother had. But this same thing happens over and over and over. And it's going to continue to happen until we get rid of the illusion of inclusion. You can't change the system designed to destroy us from inside. That system has to be destroyed. You can't take out the root of something and not expect to destroy the whole thing. But no matter how much you think they're on your side, they're not going to destroy a system designed to protect them above everybody else, even if they are getting exploited by the same system. At the end of the day, they know that system benefits them more than anybody else. And that system hurts us more than anybody else. And nobody else is going to destroy that system but us. That's why even when we're not at our strongest, we are still the #1 threat. Because they understand when we get unified, then the system is destroyed. Black unity is the Black Messiah. And they can't stop it because it's not an individual, it's an energy. All we have to do is realize that we are all we got. And when we are ready to destroy it, then we will do what we have to do.
Those who remember 1967 as the Summer of Love may have forgotten what happened that year in cities like Newark, New Jersey.
We will not tolerate violence. We're going to crush violence in this city.
For nearly a week, residents clashed with police after a cab driver named John Smith was beaten by officers of the 4th Precinct.
They started dragging me through the streets, and this evidently incensed the people of the community.
Things were such in those early hours of the riot that Governor Hughes brought in the National Guard and the state police to quell the violence of the first riot. When those troops and troopers were brought in, then we enter the so-called second riot, which had all the markings of a riot by law enforcement officers. And that is the riot that took the greatest human toll. That's when people started losing their lives, and that's when the riot became a national spectacle of violence and mayhem and sadness and destruction.
But when the governor rushed in with the state police, they pretty much assumed full control. Not pretty much. They assumed full control and let us know in no uncertain terms they were running a show. And he called the National Guard. And the decision was to not to contain, but to crush the disturbance. This gave license to everybody, including the Newark police, and they went on to crush it in quite a tragic manner.
So the second night was the issue. I got to the corner of Springfield and Hunterton. Police cars, state troopers, all these other cars would then pull up to that intersection, and as they'd get a call, the first one would go out, the next one would go out. This not only made it a bit of a target if there was going to be shooting, actually. And so in the end, there were tremendous amounts of ammunition fired from that intersection at nothing in particular. I mean, indiscriminate, incredibly, raking the roofs of these projects with machine gun fire.
most people stayed in, and kids stayed in. Because when even I talked to friends of mine and stuff, and they didn't go out. My cousins, they didn't. I think 1 or 2 may have snuck out. But you slept on the floor. You heard all the gunfire. The gunfire was merciful, and you watch in the background. You can see fires burning everywhere.
The funny thing about the military is you have one common interest, which is you don't like it. So you have jokes about it, you fool. You start to think you're part of a fraternity, a group, guys you know, guys you have something in common with, and then you get to a place like this and you see somebody ends up shooting at an 11-year-old kid and almost kills me. And when I go down and confront him, he says, "We were told to shoot looters." And I say, "It's an 11-year-old kid. He's shoplifter yesterday. Today it's a what is it? A capital crime today? He had cigarettes." And his answer was, "Well, we were told to shoot looters." He kept saying, and I said, "Who told you?" "I didn't. Nobody told me. I've been with you most of the time." He's like, "Well, that's what I heard." I'm like, so we're now one step removed. I heard we're supposed to shoot looters. He's an 11-year-old kid, and eventually someone shot and killed an 11-year-old kid, a guardsman. I mean. And he kept questioning me like, why couldn't I get it? And then I really did have doubts. I started to think, gee, I didn't think I was that different. Why would I suddenly not shoot?
Around Wednesday or Thursday, it was very clear that the police were rioting and not the people. And the 26 people who were killed were all killed by policemen. So we had to tell that story. What happened? James Rutledge was shot 39 times, and he was in a bar. Bar is still there, just under different ownership. He was, he and another guy, this is the story that the witness told me. They went into a bar which had been previously looted over on Bergen Street in the South Ward. And because they thought they could get something still there, I guess. I don't know why you go into a bar that's already been looted, but they did. And while they were in there, the police must have seen them. So the state cops came in. The witness hid behind the broken down bar on top of all the glass. He hid behind all of that. But Rutledge, thinking that he was really just innocent, because he hadn't done anything, all he was doing was in there, he hadn't stolen anything, he stood up. And the police just took their time and executed him. They shot him 39 times.
In the end, when you look back over 40 years, you wonder the price that was paid was very heavy.
City of McKinney is moving forward with the recall of a controversial city council member. Lashadian Shimwell says he's ready to fight it. Fox 4's Allison Harris in McKinney tonight. Allison.
Clarice, there are a lot of people tonight who said that, yes, there need to be productive conversations about racism and police brutality, but there were also people who say that this councilman, Lashadian Shimwell, went about this the wrong way and caused a lot of damage to the city because of it, and even more division. Tonight, his petition against him was certified. He says he's not going to resign and that he has retained an attorney to fight this. McKinney City Council started the meeting that would determine Councilman Lashadian Shimwell's future with the city with a passionate public. One of the councilman's supporters comparing his activism, declaring a black state of emergency, to former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick taking a knee.
You are our personal Colin Kaepernick. I honor you, brother. And for you, baby, I'll take that knee. Thank you.
His detractors were emphatic about the damage they believe he's done to the city with his words, relating McKinney to the Jim Crow South, accusing police of racial profiling, and stating black people are not safe in DFW.
But I do not support telling these officers that they're conspiring to kill people. That's what this is about, and that's only what this is about, and he knows it.
Before long, there was shouting.
All lives matter.
Hold on.
The actions that led to this night, with more than 3,000 McKinney residents signing a petition for a recall election, began in 2018 when Shemwell was arrested for refusing to sign a speeding ticket and claimed he was racially profiled. Police body camera recorded him asking the officer if he knows who he is, threatening the officer by telling him that he would call the chief. Shemwell was arrested months later for felony domestic abuse. A Collin County grand jury later cleared him of that charge. Most recently, after the police shooting death of unarmed 28-year-old Tatiana Jefferson in Fort Worth, Shemwell called for that black state of emergency, warning black people to avoid North Texas.
And it's actually a pattern of behavior that has been reoccurring.
The mayor, mayor pro tem, and 2 council members are among those who signed the petition.
We want to move forward. The citizens have spoken. The petition was filed. The petition was signed.
Shemwell spoke at the end of the meeting, saying that the actions of some were embarrassing.
I say that I am embarrassed and humiliated, not for myself, but for the display that I've seen, because I'm not against police, but I am against police brutality. I'm going to fight with every breath in my body, and I'll see you in court.
How could it be otherwise? Remember, this is a zoology class, so evolution is taught.
The parents of 4 black high school students are filing a federal lawsuit against the Longwood School District in Suffolk County after a science teacher created a slideshow that included a picture of a gorilla with an image of the 4 teens with a monkey see, monkey do caption.
I didn't know that they were going to put it in that perspective and show us compare us to monkeys.
The teacher took the pictures at the Bronx Zoo during an advanced zoology course field trip. Just before December break, he presented it in a PowerPoint to his classes. The 4 students say they were humiliated when they saw themselves.
I said they had us like slaves. I posted it on my Snapchat on social media, and he asked me to take it down.
He says he was threatened and pressured by administrators to delete the video or face suspension.
This is institutionalized racial superiority.
Us African Americans been through this already, and it's coming back again about us being compared to monkeys. And I don't think we should be compared to any animal.
Longwood administrators say the zoo field trip and slideshow have been going on for the past decade, and that students of all races have been asked to pose for the monkey see photos, something the district is now calling culturally insensitive. The teacher was defended as a good man who made an honest mistake with no malice intended.
We are going to be asking for at least $12 million.
My temperature went, my hair on the back of my neck stood up. I was like, are you kidding me? This is an educator?
The parents said they were shown slideshows this week of years past and noticed another troubling photo.
The line caption, it was a picture of a lion, then it was 3 black young ladies, and then it said, not all animals are cute.
School officials and the teacher hope to meet with the parents and students. The 4 teens have been encouraged not to return to science class since the incident.
The video has been played thousands of times and seen by many students on campus, including Rachel Jackson, the president of the Black Students Union. She told us today it made her angry at first, but then she says it made her realize that incidents like this happen more frequently than you might think for students of color.
It took these videos for people around campus to actually be aware of what's going on, because this isn't only a one-time thing. This is just the incident that actually got on video. There's so much more that's happened around campus that doesn't make, especially the black community, feel welcome.
Other minority students we spoke with today told us the video reinforced feelings of not being fully accepted on campus.
I was very angry, very disappointed, and I was kind of ever since I was a freshman, I was kind of waiting for something like that to happen, because Rockland kind of has that reputation of not being that diverse and all that.
About 2/3 of the student body at Rockland High School is comprised of Caucasian students, while just 1/3 are minority students. The school has been focused, though, on getting out this message.
Well, one that it won't be tolerated, but one how proud I am of our Rockland High School community. It was our school community that notified us. When they heard something, they said something.
The school has also notified parents of the incident and is holding a unity rally here on campus tomorrow to generate school spirit at a time when many students feel divided, not united.
Woodford County High School is launching an investigation after finding a racial slur written in the water across a coach's window. LEX 18's Eleanor Buckley has more on how the school is handling the situation and reaction in tonight's big story at 11.
We don't play the hate game. It's all love and peace here.
Unfortunately, that wasn't the case at Woodford County High School on Friday night. The girls' basketball team hosted Grant County. But it's what happened after the game that still has people talking.
To go out to your car and see a racial slur on your car, that's unacceptable.
The racial slur was written in the moisture on Coach Eric Daniels' window. It's his first year coaching the Lady Jackets, but he comes to Woodford County with plenty of experience. He played for the Wildcats in the early 2000s.
He is a great role model, and he is a class act, and I just hate that he had to endure this.
Woodford County High School's Fellowship of Christian Athletes leader Bug Brown is now leading the charge to rally behind Coach Daniels. She's encouraging the entire community to come together and show their support for him by filling the gym for the girls' next home game on the 11th.
We want them, everybody in our community, to wear black and gold and wear it proudly and show Coach love, not hate. This is his first year in our school as a coach, a head coach, and that's not acceptable. That is not who we are at Woodford County, and that's not what we're going to become.
Woodford County High School released a statement about the incident saying, quote, "It's our highest priority to ensure the safety and security of our staff and students, which includes maintaining a welcoming and inclusive atmosphere," end quote, which is why they're working with law enforcement to figure out who did this. Brown says the school is taking the right approach by handling this seriously.
I'm glad that they didn't blow this off or sweep it under the rug, that they are investigating what went down. And so that is a huge step in making something bad right.
In Woodford County, Eleanor Buckley, LEX 18 News.
LEX 18 also spoke to the superintendent of Woodford County Schools, who says they are currently reviewing surveillance video and they hope to have a better idea of who was involved come Monday.
Weighing down the Calgary Flames isn't just their poor performance this season, but now accusations of racism swirling around their head coach.
Unacceptable, not only in hockey, but in the world.
Gain a little room on Fowler. Plays it, they score! Alou gets his first NHL goal!
The allegation from former NHL player Akeem Alou that Bill Peters, quote, dropped the N-bomb several times towards me in the dressing room in my rookie year because he didn't like my choice of music.
This type of allegation is repulsive, I guess would be the word I would use. So now it's my job to find out exactly what's taken place.
The team and the NHL both are investigating the accusations, which date back 10 years, when Peters and Alou were with a minor league team. Peters wasn't at practice today and hasn't commented on the allegations. But throughout the day, others came forward with claims that they too were mistreated by the coach.
Back when I played, it was definitely there.
The first NHL player of South Asian descent, Robin Bawa, had to fight through discrimination himself and says players are more vocal now, but understands why they keep quiet.
If you're on the verge of, making it or not making it, you don't want to upset the apple cart.
Former veteran NHL player George Larocque says he faced racism in minor hockey.
But other than that, the N-word itself, I've never experienced anything about the N-word.
Inclusivity in hockey has been in the spotlight since early this month, when Don Cherry sparked outrage with these comments.
You love our way of life, you love our milk and honey, at least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that.
He was fired by Sportsnet, but some say whether Peters meets the same fate, racism in hockey is a much deeper problem.
Getting rid of one coach really doesn't solve the problem for all the other players coming up in the pipeline.
Peters remains on the team but won't be behind the bench for the Flames game tomorrow night in Buffalo.
Okay. You got that frustrated because you can't do math? You don't know how to make a transaction? That's pretty sad. Okay. Okay. Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to you.
That's interesting. Okay. That's just lovely. Please do, because they need to be escorting you off of here, because you just threatened me, and if you keep on talking, and have the police here, I will file charges on you. I am a 46-year-old woman you have just threatened. Okay? Okay, there's nothing disrespectful about me. The fact is, you can't handle someone who's not disrespectful because you're a ratchet. No, you damn right I'm recording you, because you need to be fired the way you just spoke to me. Okay? What you really need is to be disciplined. I'm sorry somebody spared the rod on you. You needed some pop-pops. You are extremely disrespectful, young lady. Okay? You should care because you need a job. You can barely count. Excuse me? You about to do what to me? I wish you would come over here. I wish you would come on this overside. Okay? You don't speak to me like that, young lady. I'm sorry. Girl, somebody spared the rod on you. You needed a pop-up. Talk to a 46-year-old woman like that. She can't do math, and she got frustrated. Oh, thank you. My birthday was New Year's. Thank you very much. No, see her. Come in here. She's calling me a bunch of bitches. Talking about calling security. I got her up. She's gonna come on the other side of the table and me up. I said, I wish you would. You know, you need a pop-up. You know, I got 10 kids. Somebody, yeah.
You trifling hoe, bitch! You let your ass beat up and down this motherfucking block!
What's your name? 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 I'll have my people pull up right now and beat your ass. Period.
I'm waiting.
Period. Alright, what's
Go
up?
on.
Alright, what's up?
I'm waiting on you.
Alright, what's up? Jerry,
All of them. All of them.
Want to see you?
Tell them back waiting right here for
Baby,
them.
you ain't shit.
Rick.
Alright, bro, bye. What do you want? What do you want?
I ain't leaving. Let me call the niggas. I'm gonna man this shit out.
See what I'm saying?
Let me call my brother.
She just calls you
Believe me.
she just calls you a nigger.
I don't even know this girl.
She just called you a nigger and you just walked in the door.
Straight up. I don't even know this woman.
No one called you a nigger. I said nigger.
Oh, that's so much better. You call a grown man.
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up?
What you gonna do, bitch?
Bitch, you ain't shit, nigga. You're a grown ass trying to get out of little ass. Bitch. You sleep first, bitch. I'm right here in your face. What's up? I'm right here in your face. You regret that shit. You regret that shit. Know that shit in your heart. Know that shit in your face. Bro, bitch. You fucking guys trying to argue with a little ass girl, bitch.
Now you little girl. I'm about to help you. I'm gonna call for
Bitch, but you laughing for a nigga like you find this amusing? Fucking knock ass bitch. Fucking straight knock. Bitch,
I'm gonna have my bitch drag this bitch over down.
Bitch, drag anything out right here.
I'm gonna wait right here too. I'm waiting here.
You can stand right here. I don't care.
Call your boy. Call him. Tell him
You can stand right here. He's coming right now.
Tell him Dave waiting.
He's coming right now.
Tell him Dave waiting right out here. I'm right here.
He's coming right now. He's coming right now.
Let me show this bitch what I'm about. Hey. What?
I don't know. He's bringing help people.
This young lady is calling a grown people a bunch of niggas and niggers.
Call him.
That's fine. That's fine.
I'm waiting right here.
That's fine. That's
I'm
fine.
waiting for your man.
That's fine. That's fine. I will.
You said you was calling. I'm waiting.
Don't ask me. I'm
waiting.
It's terrible.
I'm waiting.
Go back in there, dude.
Nobody likes listening to it. Don't walk up on me, man. Don't walk up on me, man. Don't walk up on me. You're the one who invited me down here. Go back in there. What's happening? Go back in there. Hey. Or what? Or what? How about just fucking cool it on us? Or what? Like I need to fucking sock you up? Do it. I don't have to. I don't have to. Do it. Make your move. Make your move, devil. Make your move. I'm the devil. Make your move. You're the one talking all the hate. Make your move, bitch. Go back in there. I'll let you. Fuck that. He stepped on my foot. Come on, get your son. You might as well go. Well, just no. Don't get in this. Go, slap. You slap you again. Get your another. Don't step in this vicinity. You walk up here. He invited me down here. Get your another one. Step on my foot. Go, Daddy. Well, I like my space again. Come on, get your another one. I'm just gonna call him. Call him. I got you on tape. Got you on tape, devil. Got you on tape, devil. Come on, move out the way. Move out the way. Move out the way. You're the one talking hate. I ain't said nothing to you. I said nothing to you. You open your mouth and talk to me. You open your mouth and talk to me. You open your mouth and talk to me. I ain't said nothing to you. You instigated this situation. You instigated. Now come get your son. Get you another one. Huh? Take this up there to your wife. Get your son. Come on. never practiced. It's on tape. You see it. You see it. Black man, God. Easy. I turn my back on the devil. The devil can't do nothing to me.
Except
you understand?
For cops for assault.
You assaulted me. It's on tape. It's on tape. You
Well,
came and
it's
stepped
on
on
tape.
my foot. Straight up.
Violation
You
of
assaulted
space.
me. It's on tape. You came and stepped on my foot. I met you with equal aggression. It's not against the law. That's not against the law. You a big man. You about 300 pounds. I got to go to the hospital. My foot hurt. Let's go.
You're one black man who went to a good, essentially white high school in the city of New York. You obviously had had a good education. A good many of the people who work with you here in SNCC can say the same thing. And we're saying that... And you're a black man who came from a New York ghetto.
And we're saying that there's a system that allows for one or two black people to get out, and that's the rationale for keeping other black people down.
And it has nothing to do with the unwillingness or inability of the Negro to help himself and to work hard.
That's the rationale, that the reason why black people aren't this is because they're lazy, unambitious, stupid, have rhythm, and they eat watermelon.
You call on the black man to refuse to respond to his draft call.
That is correct. And we will continue to do so while there's breath in our bodies.
Do you really believe that the military policies of the United States are designed to exterminate the black man, as you've said?
I most certainly do. I look at the recent statement by racist McNamara, who says that 30% of the people that are going to be drafted now under his new system are going to be black people. And that's nothing more than black urban removal.
The white liberal who supported civil rights for so long with time and effort and money, what is your feeling about him?
Well, I think that there's no reason why they should stop supporting the movement now. I certainly feel that if they're genuinely interested in black people, and since black people have charted a course, they believe in that program, they will continue to give to it. They need more white people to civilize whites. They need them to civilize the savages in Cicero, who throw rocks and bricks at a peaceful and lovable black man like Dr. Martin Luther King, who would not even hurt a fly. But that's very important, because our uncles and our fathers and our older brothers died in World War I fighting Nazism to protect the Poles, and those same Poles turn around and throw rocks and bricks at us after we died to save their lives. And people talk about we are savages.
Mr. Carmichael, if you had the chance to stand up in front of the white community and say anything you desired, say to him, "Understand me, white man," what would you say?
I would say, understand yourself, white man, that the white man's burden should not have been preached in Africa, but it should have been preached among you. That you need now to civilize yourself. You have moved to destroy and disrupt. You have taken people away. You have broken down their systems, and you have called all that civilization. And we who have suffered at this are now saying to you, you are the killers of the dreams. You are the savages. Yes, it is you who have always been uncivilized. Civilize yourself.